Larry and Andy Wachowski are interesting people. And not just because they later became Lana and Lily Wachowski. Yeah, that part definitely got people talking. What's really interesting is their career. These guys exploded into Hollywood in the late 90s with a massive hit that made a ton of money and instantly became a cult classic. And then basically spent the next decade and a half stuck in a pattern of expensive box office failures. Even Netflix, the platform that will keep a struggling show alive way longer than it probably should, pulled the plug on their series Sense8 after just 2 seasons, only letting them come back to wrap things up. And if you look closely, even The Matrix Revolutions kind of falls into the not really a success category. Sure, it probably made money thanks to marketing and hype, but compared to the second movie, the drop was huge. And that's not a win, not even close. The usual explanation is that Warner rushed it. The second and third Matrix movies came out just 6 months apart. The sequel disappointed a lot of people, and the third movie took the full hit of that backlash. If they had waited a year or two, maybe audiences would have cooled off and shown up again. And yeah, that logic tracks. Something similar happened with Back to the Future Parts 2 and 3, like also released 6 months apart. And the third movie dropped off even though people liked the second one. These days, studios usually wait at least a year before dropping a sequel, and there's a reason for that. But regardless of the timing, after The Matrix, things started going downhill for the Wachowskis. First came V for Vendetta, which they produced. It didn't bomb, but it barely made it into profit, and that's being generous. Then came Speed Racer, a very expensive movie that crashed hard and got torn apart by both critics and audiences. Then Cloud Atlas, which also flopped at the box office, although it softened the blow a bit with good reviews and a very unusual financing model. A bunch of European funds were involved, so the damage was kind of spread out. And then came Jupiter Ascending, and this is where everything really falls apart. According to the Wachowskis, Jupiter Ascending was supposed to be a mix of The Odyssey and The Wizard of Oz. That sounds ambitious. They turned that idea into a 600-page script. 600 pages. Because apparently editing was optional. They brought this monster of a script to Warner Brothers president Jeff Robinov in 2011. Robinov had already reached out to them a couple of years earlier because Warner desperately wanted a new franchise. And in their minds, the Wachowskis, the people who gave them The Matrix, seemed like the perfect choice. So when they showed up with Jupiter Ascending, Robinov basically said, "Let's do it." And just like that, the movie got greenlit. But right away there was a problem: the lead actress. Natalie Portman was originally supposed to star, but she wasn't happy with the script. They tried to tweak it for her, didn't work, she walked. Then Rooney Mara came in. You know her from The Girl with the Dragon Tattoo, but she also ran into issues and bailed not long after. At this point, it's already not a great sign. Finally, Mila Kunis joins the project, and unlike the others, she's totally on board. In fact, she liked the script so much that she turned down Ted 2 to do this movie, and Amanda Seyfried replaced her there. Looking back, that decision wasn't exactly a disaster. Ted 2 made less money than the original, but it still wasn't a flop. Meanwhile, Channing Tatum and Eddie Redmayne joined the movie without hesitation. Both had wanted to work with the Wachowskis for a long time, so when the offer came in, they said yes immediately. The initial budget was $130 million. Warner put in $50 million, Village Roadshow added another $50 million, and the remaining $30 million came from Rat Pack and Dune. Filming started in April 2013 and wrapped in August, and at first, everything actually went smoothly. But then something happened that nobody expected. In June 2013, Jeff Robinov, the guy who believed in this project and pushed it forward, left Warner Brothers. And that change at the top? A lot of people think that's where things really started to go wrong. Not that the movie would have been great, but it might have performed better. Because now, the people running the studio weren't the ones who originally wanted this movie. And then the test screenings happened, and they were bad. Really bad. The biggest problem? Nobody understood what the hell was going on, so the studio panicked and sent the movie back for reshoots to make the story clearer. Those happened in January 2014, and officially they were minor. Then they did another round of test screenings in March, and guess what? Still not working. So they scheduled even more reshoots for May 2014. This time, they were much bigger and lasted 3 weeks. What exactly were they trying to fix? Nobody knows. The studio never explained it. Whether they tested the movie again after that is also unclear. But what we do know is this. In June 2014, Warner pulled the movie from its prime summer release date and pushed it all the way to late January 2015. And if you know anything about Hollywood, that's a huge red flag. January is basically where studios dump movies they don't believe in. So the moment that happened, the press went all in. Articles started popping up everywhere saying the movie was in trouble. Rumors that it was bad, or straight up didn't work, were everywhere. Along with Seventh Son, Jupiter Ascending was already being labeled a top contender for Flop of the Year months before it even came out. And honestly, it wasn't just rumors. The first footage and trailers released back in late 2013, it didn't generate hype. They got mocked. Hard. People just weren't buying it. At this point, even the people involved seemed to know what was coming. Lana Wachowski was already saying in interviews before the release that a lot of failed movies eventually become cult classics, and that maybe Jupiter Ascending would end up like Blade Runner someday, which is a very optimistic way of saying, yeah, this might not go well. Channing Tatum, meanwhile, complained openly about the makeup, saying it was so uncomfortable he could barely speak. And when someone asked him what the movie was actually about, he basically admitted, I have no idea. Which is not exactly the kind of promo you want. Warner, of course, kept saying everything was fine. They insisted the delay had nothing to do with quality, and that they just wanted to give the filmmakers more time to perfect the movie. They also pointed out that most of the Matrix team worked on it, and that one 8-minute action sequence in Chicago took 6 months to shoot because of how complex it was. All of which sounds impressive until you realize none of that guarantees a good movie. By the time it finally hit theaters, the budget had ballooned to $179 million. What started as a big movie turned into one of the most expensive films of the year. And then came the box office. In the US, it made just $47 million. Worldwide, it added another $136 million, which means the studios likely lost somewhere between $100 and $150 million. Burned, gone, just like that. Exactly how the losses were split between the studios is still unclear. That information never went public. On top of that, the movie picked up 6 Golden Raspberry nominations, including Worst Director, Worst Actor, Worst Actress, Worst Screenplay, and Worst Picture. The only win it managed was for Eddie Redmayne. And yet, despite all of this, a lot of people in Hollywood still defended the movie. Their argument? In a world full of endless sequels and franchises, Jupiter Ascending at least tried to do something new. Sure, it didn't work, not even close. But it wasn't another recycled IP. And honestly, that might be the nicest thing you can say about it. That was Frameback. Subscribe for more rewinds and see you on the next one.